How's it going? And welcome to episode 215 of On the Wire, proud member of the Pitcher List Podcast Network. I am Adam Howe, and I'm going solo today. I've done this in a long time, so bear with me throughout the episode. I venture to guess this will be a shorter episode than normal, and you only have to listen to me for probably half the time. And if you're throwing myself on 1.5 speed, then it's even shorter for you. Hopefully, I give you as much information as you need to make the decisions to pick up the right players that fit your needs for the 10th Faab period of this 2025 season. Kevin will be back, of course, with us next week. But let's get right into it. We're going to go lightning round here through some news and notes that happened throughout the course of the week. And if you are watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. Bear with me as I flip through different screens and try to keep up with my own notes here. If I happen to not flip to the next screen, do apologize. But for those listening, you don't really care. First, one of the more recent news items that came across here, Jock Peterson was hit in the hand by Bryce Wilson on Saturday during Saturday's matchup, and it turns out he fractured that right hand and will be out for quite some time as he recovers from that. Corey Seager also, as Rangers related news, Bruce Bochy said that Corey Seager won't be back from the IL for another 7 to 10 days. So we won't be expecting him to fill in that DH spot when he comes back, at least not right away. So the Rangers are going to be having to do, they're going to have to call somebody up, keep an eye on what that final transaction ends up looking like before Faab runs. I could totally see them calling Dustin Harris back up and just filling in the gap at DH. I do expect Seager to be able to take the majority or a lot of the DH spots when he does come back, but that's not for another week or so. So for those enjoying the flexibility of Josh Smith, even if the production hasn't been there as much as it was at the start, Josh Smith is still filling in every day at shortstop for the foreseeable future, batting in the 1 or 2 spot most days throughout the course of the week. Off to my Boston Red Sox. Third baseman Alex Bregman lands on the IL with a strained quad, and unfortunately, Cora did mention that the seriousness was similar to what kept Bregman out 58 games in 2021. So we expect to see Bregman out for maybe the next 2 months of the season, but we shall see as more updates come about. In the meantime, prospect Marcelo Mayer made his MLB debut in the second game of the Red Sox-Orioles doubleheader on Saturday, making a start at third base and making himself, of course, eligible for bidding this coming Faab period. It was also announced that Rafael Devers would not be playing third base. He did start at DH in that game as well, with Mayer being the third baseman in the second game, Sogard being the third baseman in the first game. Sogard moved over to first base to start in the second game as well. So a lot of opportunities to kind of just put Devers right back in the field, but they said, no, you've already left your glove at home, and Mayer should be the everyday third baseman for the foreseeable future for the Red Sox, and there's no reason he would be sent down if he can produce the way most Red Sox fans and anybody following the game thinks that he can at the major league level. So of course we almost always see some kind of hiccups early going, but we've seen other success from other rookie players on the Red Sox this season already. So I would expect to see a lot of bidding on Marcelo Mayer. Just, if nothing else, just the hype, top prospect pedigree, all that stuff. And what will be nice is that he may very well be worth the triple-digit bid if Bregman is going to be out as long as is currently expected. Play if you're like me in some leagues where you don't have a ton of cash left over, we might be finding yourself on the other side of this bidding war, and that might be okay as well. Knowing where this is going to end up for the Red Sox and for Mayer being just how long he'll be on this roster is still technically in question. And so we'll see how far that money can go. But if you are desperate for somebody and we think that Bregman could be out a while, Mayer could be your guy. Just a couple notes that doesn't affect a whole lot, but as looking at rostership percentages, it does affect some people. Ben Lively underwent his UCL reconstruction surgery. He's hoping to return for the second half of 2026, of course. And then Hayden Wesneski officially had his Tommy John surgery as well throughout earlier this week. Both these guys obviously not of a concern. You should have already dropped them, but Lively is still 26% rostered in the main event, 2% in online championships. Wesneski still 5% in the main event and 8% in online championships. So there are still a handful of you out there that have not made a drop. I know myself, I had an instance, at least in one league, where I needed to drop somebody of the same ilk, and I just lost all of my bids. So I know this can happen. So just make sure that you've got enough bids underneath Lively and Wesneski this year as your drop, that you're not stuck holding on to them for another week. The Tigers got back Matt Vierling. He returned to the lineup this week, started in center field for the Tigers on Saturday, did not start on his first day back on Friday. But this should at least spell Javi Baez, who started off extremely strong early on as he moved into center field and has obviously petered out a little bit, which comes to no surprise to most. It is nice to have all that flexibility for Javi Baez and to have him be a name that you enjoy talking about and just being like rooting for him in general. But with Vierling starting in the 7-hole for the Tigers on Saturday against the righty, we would expect Vierling to be catching up or filling in moving forward, as long as his injury doesn't creep back up for him as well. And though I don't expect him to be everyday player right off the bat, he should kind of carve himself out a nice niche. So keep an eye on that if you are looking for more opportunities from an outfielder. I think that Vierling could very well get some added playing time that you might not have been expected. 21% rostered in the main event, only 4% in online championships. I don't think you need to be jumping at the bit in those 12 teamers, but I do believe that it could be a common ad in your 15 teamers this Sunday. White Sox, they optioned Tim Elko and then more notably Andrew Vaughn earlier this week. And so as I kind of flip through and see what that kind of has looked like for the White Sox, obviously it's noticeable as Andrew Vaughn, 97% rostered in the main event, 33% rostered still in those 12-team online championships. We've had Miguel Vargas move over to first base over the course of the weekend, batting third, which is par for the course here. He's been batting in the top 3 for the last 3 or 4 weeks here for the White Sox, performing fine in general, but it does look like Vargas is going to be the pretty much everyday first baseman unless Andrew Vaughn can get some things together and get called back up. He wasn't really playing any first base anyway. He was pretty much DHing Andrew Vaughn, that is, for the White Sox, where Elko was playing, the majority of first base. throughout the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks, since being called up and then sent back right back down alongside Andrew Vaughn. Andrew Benintendi did return from the IL alongside Mike Tauchman for the White Sox. They both kind of filled in right away, with Benintendi being the DH in the cleanup spot, with Mike Tauchman going right back into the top 2 spots of the lineup, batting second on both Friday and Saturday after his return. So that appears to be where we'll see the majority of the White Sox lineup kind of fill itself in, with the likes of Elko and Vaughn being demoted. A couple moves by the Athletics. They made a bunch of moves, most notably J.J. Bleday, who is 100% rostered in the main event, 87% rostered in online championships. He was optioned down. And then Gio Urshela was put on the IL. And then Seth Brown, both Urshela and Brown not rostered anywhere. But, their names come up quite often, or every couple of weeks. But Seth Brown was designated for assignment by the A's, with JJ Bleday and a bunch of other movement and other player movement from the A's. We really see. JJ Bleday was playing pretty much every day. He was getting a couple extra days off here or there in center field for the Athletics. So this should move. Denzel Clark was called up, and he did start against a lefty on Saturday. So he could be filling in that spot in center field. When Bleday was out of the lineup, we saw Lawrence Butler just move over to center field. We've seen other players kind of fill in that gap as needed, including Seth Brown for that matter. So it does, with Seth Brown out of the picture, Lawrence Butler not starting against the lefty on Saturday. We did see Denzel Clark thrown in there, and not necessarily expecting a whole lot out of Denzel Clark, but we'll see what kind of playing time we see from the Athletics at that position while JJ Bleday is in AAA. The Milwaukee Brewers, they welcome back Aaron Ashby, one of my personal favorites, from the IL, and they option reliever Carlos Rodriguez as the corresponding move. Not expecting a whole lot of relatively high leverage situations from Aaron Ashby, but nice to see that come back up. Would be nice to see if he fills in any kind of bulk reliever, and maybe we can get some extra strikeouts or things of that nature. But I don't foresee him being somebody I'm targeting in my ratios category, which is usually where that type of position ends up finding itself into on our recommendation list. All right. Well, with all that being said, that is a quick rundown of some news and notes that happened throughout the course of the week that may impact your decision making when it comes to your Faab consideration. Of course, there's a whole bunch of other things that happened throughout the course of the week. You should be listening to the First Pitch podcast with Jake Crumpler and Trevor Huth on the weekends. They break down all the news, highlights, and observations from every day's worth of games, as well as looking ahead at each slate to keep you up to date with everything you need to know to win your fantasy league. Of course, Nick Pollock has you covered on the starting pitching front with Plus Pitch podcast. He highlights every starting pitching performance from the day prior, and looking ahead to future matchups with his streaming article over at pitcherlist.com. All right, with all of that in mind and anything else you might want to consider, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I will run through some player recommendations powered by not only my own insight, but of course also the PLV projections that come out every Saturday for the following week. But we'll get to all that right after this break. All right. Hey guys, thanks for joining me so late on a Friday night. I'm just going to get some of my screens caught up here so I can show off some of the Process Plus things and what have you. Probably going to be a quick one. Appreciate you guys chatting about as well. Trying to keep an eye on every single screen of mine as well, but bear with me here. All right. All right, welcome back. You are still listening to On the Wire. I am Adam Howe, running solo today, trying to do Kevin proud here, as he's enjoying his time off. Well deserved. But we'll get right into some recommendations. As I mentioned before the break, going to be powered a lot of these recommendations from the PLV projections that, of course, you can get on a weekly basis, daily basis, weekly basis. If you are a PL Pro subscriber, a whole bunch of other things, of course, that come along with that, including discussions in our PL Discord. Along with a bunch of other apps and tools, which I'll show off a couple of those here as long as I can remember to click on the right tabs as well. So let's get into Power. The first one that I'm going to get into, and if I can find the right tab to show off here for those watching at home or watching from wherever you're watching, we've got a recommendation of Joe Adell. Kind of a surprising one, if I do say so myself, as I was kind of scrolling through PLV projections for next week. Joe Adell does have, three against the Yankees, where he will face off against two lefties and one righty starting pitcher. And then he'll be 3 at Cleveland with 2 right-handed starters and 1 left-handed starters over the weekend as well. One noticeable thing, of course, as I'm showing off his Process Plus, obviously his power is what's kind of been driving him throughout the course of the season. And it's just kind of getting bigger and better. And that's pretty much the only category that's really doing anything for him. Yeah, like in the last couple days or last couple weeks, his contact has getting close to league average. Same thing with his decisions. So he's doing some things. He's making some adjustments to kind of utilize that power and make it go a little further, pun intended, of course. And he is missing a couple games here or there, but I do expect that they'll be able to take it as long as he can continue to take advantage of that power throughout the course of the next couple of days. The Angels are really going to have not much of a choice but to continue to play him. And if you're just looking for a power surge, that's all you're going to get with Joe Adell. And that's fine because that's what you're looking for. In the last 3 weeks, he has garnered half of his hits have gone over the fence. Granted, he's got a total of 8 hits in those 3 weeks. So 4 home runs, still nothing to shake a stick at. So Joe Adell, 77% rostered in the main event, 32% rostered in online championships. If you are looking for a little bit of a power expectation of a power surge for this coming weekend, Joe Adell, you could do a lot worse in PLV projections against his matchups against the Yankees and the Guardians. Really have him tapping into that power, which you see on here from his Process Plus chart, as being something that he is obviously doing something right with. Somebody that's a little bit more readily available. And if I can find the right chart, I don't think I have. Oh, I do have him up. We are going to go with Cody Clemens. He's got, in the last week or so, you notice with all the moves that the Twins have made between injuries and send downs and what have you, Cody Clemens appears to be the strong side of the platoon at second base for the Twins, and they're lined up to face off against 6 right-handed pitchers as they travel to Tampa Bay and to Seattle next week. And in the last couple weeks, as you can see from his Process Plus chart, his he's taking this opportunity to the next level where he's showing off what power he does have in that small sample size over the course of the last couple of days, in a week and a half or so. So Cody Clemens, 12% rostered in the main event, 0% rostered in your 12 teamers. It's going to be hard to put him at the top of your waterfall list just because you don't know exactly what the Twins are going to do with him. But if recent history is showing you anything, at the very least, and knowing that the Twins are set to face off against all right-handed starters against Tampa Bay and Seattle, pending any kind of changes in the schedule or the rotations of either team. We'll see a lot more of Cody Clemens, and hopefully he can continue to tap into this newfound power with regular playing time throughout the course of the week. Cody Clemens. All right, we'll move on to a speed option here. Not powered by PLV projections, simply just looking at the matchups moving ahead. So really what I'm going to recommend for this coming week is I want to focus on the fact that we see two teams really just giving runners whatever they want to do, letting them do whatever they want out on the base pass, with the Houston Astros being one of them. They have allowed 62 stolen bases, only throwing out 6 on the year. That is good for the most stolen bases allowed in the American League, and only second most overall. And that's thanks to Miami Marlins giving up 79. It's a 79. That's a lot of stolen bases in comparison. And they've only thrown out a handful of theirs as well. So both of their caught stealing rates in the single digits here. So if you can find, Miami faces off against San Diego and San Francisco throughout the course of the next week. So if you can find anybody available on your wire that has any type of speed component to their game, go for it. In Tampa Bay, of course, we know we have lots of speedsters. Tampa Bay faces off against Houston for 3 games. And on top of that, they do have 7 games on the week total, where they're facing off against Minnesota for 3, and then they're at Houston for 4. So the only rub here is that at Houston, they are facing off against a couple of left-handed pitchers, starting pitchers as well. So they very well might not be the ones that give up the easy stolen bases, as they're just staring at first base most of the time. They can usually hold runners a little bit easier, but they do face off 2 righties as well. So they're not throwing anybody out. Obviously, Simpson and Caballero probably not available, but of course, if you can go grab those guys, by all means. Cameron Meisner, 46% rostered in the main event, 14% rostered in the online championship. Is playing pretty much every day. He's facing off against right-handed pitchers in center field whenever that happens. He is starting against them, against some left-handed pitchers as well, but we'll see him playing at least 5 or 6 games throughout the course of the week, and getting an opportunity. He's not the fastest guy in the team. Obviously, they have a couple of guys I just mentioned that's going to take that from him, but he does have some speed in his game, and with the opportunities Houston could provide, at least historically throughout the course of the season, Meisner and anybody else in Tampa Bay could be somebody that can get you a couple stolen bases this week. Houston also plays 2 games against the Athletics as well early in the week. So if there's somebody on the Athletics with some speed, you might want to take a look at them as an option as well. All right, we'll close out the hitting section here with our opportunity, and of course, we'll go through some notable schedule notes here. 7-game work week. We only have Tampa Bay and Toronto that get to take advantage of the 7-game work week. Nobody has 5 games, so everybody else with just the 6. So just a 1-game advantage for these 2 teams. Colorado is going to be on the road all week, as well as Cincinnati. Same thing. But their offenses are not performing at all. So more so looking at them as streaming pitching options for your consideration. Colorado will be facing off in Wrigley against the Cubs, and then in New York against the Mets. Cincinnati will be traveling to Kansas City, and then the Cubs. So the Cubs looking like they have a very nice matchup, or a pair of matchups throughout the course of the week, with Rocky Road and then the red carpet being draped over Wrigley. Tampa Bay will be at home against Minnesota, so they get to take advantage of that park for the first half. But then, as I mentioned earlier, they have 4 games at Houston. The Athletics will be on the road as well all week, so nobody's taking advantage of that park. They'll be at Houston for 2 and then at Toronto for 4. All right, so in the opportunity section, with that schedule in mind, and then with other things that might have consideration, Tyrone Taylor is our pick here in the opportunity section, and this one is being driven by PLV projections and PL Bot. 14% rostered in the main event, 0% rostered in online championships in your 12 teamers, playing every single day as the everyday center fielder. Batting 9th until this week. He did move up to the 6, 7, 8 spot respectively over the last 3 days in the lineup. Could have more to do with Mark Vientos and Brandon Nimmo missing a day or two, but his play has been also warranting some kind of consideration to move around in the lineup as well. But just the fact that he is playing every day is consideration here, where his contact, as I'm showing from his process plus chart here, his contact is what really drives his value, hence putting him into the opportunity section as well. Not a ton of power to consider, though, with the pitching matchups that he is going to see this week, 3 right-handed pitchers with the Chicago White Sox, and then a couple of lefties and a righty against Rocky Road. This is going to be these are considerations that PLV projections have taken into account, and they've got Tyrone Taylor as a very valuable hitter for this week based on the matchups, and based on the ballpark that he'll be playing at home all week as well. So Tyrone Taylor playing every day in center field on in a very good lineup for the Mets. In that second leadoff spot, if you will, should still be able to provide plenty of plate appearances, being as that lineup turns over more often than not against the White Sox and the Rockies on the road, respectively. So Tyrone Taylor going to be readily available. You probably don't need to spend a whole lot on it, but if you are looking for somebody that can probably provide a little bit more consistency throughout the course of your lineup, you need to fill in because you just lost JJ Bleday because he got demoted, or you're just looking for an outfielder to kind of fill in any kind of a spot. Tyrone Taylor going to be a target of mine in those situations, based on this information. All right, with all that, we'll get into some pitching suggestions, but we're going to do that right after this break. All right, guys. All right. Let's clean up some of my tabs here. Thanks for bearing with me, everybody. 1 second. All right, I am back, and we'll get right into the PLV projections of your wins and strikeouts suggestions here. Bowden Francis is what leads us off here with a two-step at Texas and against the Athletics in Toronto, at least as it lines up currently. Um, this could very well not work out nicely in the ratio category for you, but that's not what we're targeting here. Of course, your two steps, that's what exactly you're just crossing your fingers, you're holding your nose in a lot of situations here, just hoping that you can get that double spot. Bowden Francis hasn't been the most efficient pitcher as I kind of scroll through and look for his game logs here. Going 4 innings in his last outing, 4 2/3. Did go 6 2/3 a couple starts ago, but mostly has only crossed that 5 inning mark a handful of times, and those were mostly at the very beginning of the season. So if he can get it together and line himself up, Toronto can put him in a position to walk away with a W. But we're really going to be focused here on the strikeouts, as long as he can get that volume up there, striking out, 4 in 4 innings, 6 in 4 2/3 innings, 5 in 6 2/3 prior to that. So it's really going to be about how deep Bowden Francis can go in the game. Not something that I'm probably going to chase in a 12-teamer, but in a 15-teamer, totally on the table, and will be something that people make him 100% rostered in those leagues. Currently 83% rostered in the main event, 40% rostered in online championships, and just due to the fact that he does have the two-step against fine, okay offenses. Texas hasn't really been doing a whole lot, and now with Jock Peterson being out, and we know that Corey Seager is not going to be back throughout the course of this week, and Marcus Semien moving to the bottom of the order. Not a lineup everybody's been really fearing per se. So the Athletics also being on the road, not having to be. I mean, Toronto's still kind of a hitter's park in general, but not a situation that he has to worry about going into that AAA ballpark in West Sacramento. So Bowden Francis, probably not breaking the bank on him, but the matchups and the opportunity of the two-step going to be something that you have to take notice of. And the only other one I'm going to throw out there is just a note that Yu Darvish is making his way back. And though he is not expected to be back in the first half of the week for the first series, very well could be back in the second series. So this would be a good time to kind of stash him. He is available in about 14% of main event leagues and over half of online championships. So even if you want to grab him now and stash him on your bench for a week to see how he does, or when he does come back, he'll be a little bit less expensive this week than he will the following week. All right, moving into our ratios categories here. I'm going to do exactly what Kevin usually does, and we're going to rely on Rick Graham's article over at Pitcher List as we take a look at, and as I try to pull this up real quick. I had it open earlier. We're going to look at his saves and holds article that comes out every Thursday. And the two names that kind of really stood out to me from that article this week were guys that moved up the most on his list. And I'm just going to get right into it instead of trying to scroll through this all the articles over at Pitcher List. Randy Rodriguez in San Francisco been doing some really interesting things where he's been their most consistent reliever throughout the course of the week, of the year, really. And though we're not expecting him to, jump over the likes of Octavio Dotel and obviously Ryan Walker for saves, he is being put into high leverage situations, and he's performing considerably well. 9% rostered in the main event, 0% rostered in online championships. So depending on his usage on Sunday, very could be somebody you want to target if you're looking to chop into your ratio categories there. And then Brendan Little for the Chicago Cubs has been arguably their best reliever in their bullpen, moving up Rick's list considerably. 4% roster in the main event. So there are a couple out there that have taken notice already, especially with some of the changes at the back end of the bullpen, which we'll get into in a second. Brendan Little very well could end up vulturing a save here or there, in addition to really helping you out in your ratio categories and vulturing a win, being put into those high leverage situations as well for the Chicago Cubs. Brendan Little and Randy Rodriguez, those relievers that can help you out in those ratio categories throughout the course of the week. And yeah, sorry, Uncle Ted. Yeah, as I'll correct myself. Brendan Little for the Toronto Blue Jays. As we move into the saves category, where I'll close it out here. No pun intended. No, sorry, totally pun intended. Daniel Palencia has ultimately looked like he moved into the closer position with Porter Hodge hitting the IL, and then Ryan Presley just being Ryan Presley. So 5% rostered in the main event, 1% rostered in online championships. This move he just got his first career save this past week. Would expect, especially with all the extremely high bids we saw on Jordan Romano last week, officially moving into that closer position for the Philadelphia Phillies. Anything that you can throw a dart at this point for saves is going to be something that's going to be highly bid on in pretty much all of your leagues. So just don't be the one that just totally forgets. And if you're in that one league where everybody forgets, you can take advantage of that with a nice low bid, or at least keep an honest bid for Daniel Palencia. And then Kyle Finnegan was reporting shoulder fatigue on Saturday. Maybe nothing, maybe something. But want to keep an eye on probably the likes of Jorge Lopez being the strongest righty at the back end of that bullpen as well. Not a lot of lefties, so I'm not expecting anybody except for Jorge Lopez to kind of take the reins if Kyle Finnegan were to miss any time. And like I said, it may be nothing. And there's not a ton of saves to go around from the Nationals anyway. So Jorge Lopez still somebody probably worth throwing, a buck or two on if there is more to the shoulder fatigue of Kyle Finnegan than was first reported. All right, guys. Well, that was my attempt to run through this and do my best Kevin impersonation that I could. So thank you so much for bearing with me, and hopefully some of this information was useful to you as you make your final bids. We will be back with a full episode next week as we break down all of our Faab recommendations. And Uncle Ted, especially, and everybody watching at home, thank you so much for jumping in the chat. I apologize. I have not been able to watch all of my screens at once, trying to keep up here. But thank you so much. And we, you know what? I'm going to, I'll take this last second and just kind of work off the cuff here, as Reese 79 asking if he would drop Tyler Mahle for Will Warren. I would do that in less than one heartbeat. Will Warren, just the strikeout potential, the win potential in general on the Yankees and what he's been doing. He's been making a lot of adjustments. Go back and watch or listen to Nick Pollock talk about Will Warren with Eno Saris on the Craft. They did a broadcast podcast where they watched Will Warren and Luis Castillo match up and talked about both of them and a bunch of other stuff on the craft. It was like 2 episodes ago in the craft. But Will Warren making some adjustments and showing that he's definitely worth a flyer, and I would trust him at this point over Tyler Mahle, even with Mahle's what he's been doing as well. Griffin Jax, love Griffin Jax. He's obviously somebody we were a little worried about at the beginning of the season, but he's somebody that he should be a staple on your rosters. If you're needing some kind of stability in those ratio categories as well. Yarbrough, man, I can't do that. Again, I know Kevin mentions Yarbrough as an option. Of course, pitching in those situations, he does have a potential 2-step for this week as well. But man, I can't do it. Cool. All right. Well, thank you everybody so much for listening. We're gonna call it there, and we'll see you guys next week. I am Adam Howe on behalf of Kevin Hasting. Thanks for listening. I bid you goodbye.